Does Emu prey on an underlying weakness in the target, some tiny fraction that wishes for the power? Well, Dory and Brokey are incredibly competitive. Yeah, that would be kind of cool, preying on an Whoa! I just thought of something. Preying on an internal, dark yearning for power? Sorry, I haven't read the bits. I will in a second. But okay, listen, if we follow that train of thought that Power Flare just said, what if Emu is forcefully putting people into these covenants, but also a requirement of those could be an internal yearning for power, like an envious, prideful lust for power, right? Usopp, I wasn't actually thinking of Usopp, but... Okay, Usopp, yes, you're right. Buggy? Zoro? Zoro was the first one I thought of, but then I immediately thought of Buggy as well. Like, there are lots of characters who have a bit of a rough human need for power that not necessarily they'll turn into demons or whatever, but that they'll be a target for this, and that could be a foundation for internalization. At the very least, they're creating scenarios in which someone could likely have a desperation well up. Yes. And who is desperate? I immediately thought of Zoro. What did Zoro call himself? Like, the King of Hell? Something along the lines of hell, or a demon, or something. It always comes back to Zoro. Oh, God. Oh, Jesus. Anyways, I don't necessarily think that's super likely, but the potential's there, and it's a really interesting train of thought. Given the first world's, itself, called itself the domain of gods, but likely creating a hellish world of colonialism, imagine if Emu worshipped devils to fight the angels that colonized and created a vision of God that put the demonic above all as their salvation, as they rewrote the world into the second world, and then just carrying that forward into every era. You know what that reminds me of? Emu worshipped devils to fight the angels that colonized and created a vision of God that put the demonic above all. But the thing with the nature of history, that I think, maybe I'm imposing my own ideals and thoughts on this, but I think One Piece kind of adheres to it as well. I think that One Piece believes that when it comes to history, there are cycles of power and culture. There's times for certain cultures, there's times for some beings to be in power, but then it ultimately, eventually resets, and it's cyclical, right? But what Emu is, and that's just a way of life, right? There are new eras, there are old eras, some are in power, then they go to the bottom, and they go on top again. I think Oda has said that pretty consistently throughout the series. But what Emu is trying to do is make it so that there are no cycles. Demons are always on top. They're trying to cause this to be in perpetuity, forever, stagnant. And that is even more antithetical to what Luffy and Shanks and everyone stands for. It's a new era. Things will always be changing. There will always be cycles. Whereas Emu's trying to keep things the same all the time. And that's really, really cool. What is the end goal with that demonic world? There is no end goal. What's interesting about Emu, obviously we still don't know a lot about Emu. So there's a lot of inferences that we'd make. Aside from potentially like reviving Lily or something like that, aside from something like that, what's ironic about Emu is they have the same overall kind of broad strokes philosophy as Luffy in some ways. What is that? There is no end goal. It's about the journey towards it, or rather the detours towards it, and Emu's fixation is to never feel powerless or vulnerable or at risk of being hurt again. And so there is no end goal. The end goal is avoiding fear. It's constantly running. You know what I mean? Whereas Luffy he has the One Piece, but really, his end goal is immaterial. Emu's end goal is immaterial as well, so is Luffy's. Emu's constantly running from fear and trying to consolidate their place at the top of the world because they just feel so uncomfortable and scared to not be on top. Luffy is constantly chasing, right? They're both fixated on the detours. And the end is their means. But Emu's running and Luffy's chasing. That's how I conceptualize the goal for Emu and the dynamic between them and Luffy. I think they will, Lightning Hunter. Emu's gone? Oh god. You're actually right. There's lots of Gone parallels. Gone pre-Enlightenment. Even though Emu has already gotten all the power one could realistically achieve, he's still programmed to constantly be chasing a new high when there's no high to reach. Yeah, because the thing is, you can't win. That's the thing with Emu. Spoiler alert, I have a Doflamingo video coming out, like a deep dive into Doflamingo, and one of the things I talk about him is that there is no, like, it's an his end goal is exhausting, because what is his end goal? Be on top. What do you do once you get there? Continuously try to fight to defend that, because you're just so scared of not being on top. Same thing with Emu. There is no winning here. And it's the same thing with Luffy, too, but the difference with Luffy is that once he gets there, he's going to be like, okay, what's the next adventure? Whereas with Emu and Doflamingo, once they get there, it's like, oh god, what is the next thing to be afraid of? You know?